Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Why Is It So Messy in the Middle? Our podcast featuring the reality of what it looks like once you've been in business for a few years. So, I'm your host, Amber Christian. And as a reminder for how this podcast actually works, so what we're going to do is we're going to get into the backstory of what's going on with an artisan's business. And we're going to come up with a question that we're going to pose. And if you go on our YouTube channel after this, if you've watched this somewhere else, you can add your comments on things that the artisan can think about. So you could say, well, could you think about this? Could you think about that? In terms of options to give them ideas on how to help them get unstuck and to keep moving forward. So today's guest is Sonya, and I am delighted that you are here today, Sonya. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business?
Okay, hi. My name is Sonya. I am the owner of Geneva Soapery, and I've been in business now for almost 4 years. And it's been a very interesting situation. I make soap and bath body products, and just looking for some inspiration and ideas through this podcast.
Mhm. Okay, now Sonia's had a few interesting things happen the last couple years that has really thrown her business for a bit of a curveball. And these kind of things happen to a lot of business owners. So, Sonia, why don't you tell us what happened in the last couple of years that is dramatically changing your business?
Well, I started the business because of this issue, and it's also become somewhat of an issue in a sense. So I started this business because I was diagnosed with kidney failure, and I was in a very kind of weird, kind of sad place. And I was watching soaping videos to, kind of get out of it because they made me happy, and I was just so amazed at the thought of taking oils and lye, and next thing you know, there's soap, and I was like, I want to do that. I could do that. And that's how I got into making soap. And I started the process and started my business and was just so excited in it. But then in September of 2023, I was finally called to get a kidney. And it was an amazing day, of course, and filled with kind of fear and excitement. And now we're 6 months into it, seven, and I'm not allowed to actually be around a lot of people because of the medication and things that I'm on. So I went from doing shows and being able to make sales to now I'm not able to be out in the public so much, and I don't have the sale traction to my website. So how do I do that now with the amazing, I have this new life, but how do I do it now?
hmm So it's the hey, yay, got the transplant. This is fantastic.
Right?
But oh, now there's all these ramifications
Mm-hmm.
of being on the other side of the transplant, not being able to go to a craft fair. Some people would say one of the most beautiful things about working with artisans is being able to sell in person and meet the artisan. And you're like, I would love to meet you, but that's a no right now.
Yeah. I would love to meet you, but I don't know if you're Jeremy, so I have to stay over here. Be careful. I'm so
Exactly.
sorry,
Exactly.
and that's
And,
what
and
it is now. I'm just kind of like, oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, it feels a little awkward. And so you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I've got to figure out kind of these next steps. And for a lot of people too, with websites, you're like, okay, well, now I have to generate organic traffic. And practicality for all of us, even myself included at Handmade Seller Magazine, is that algorithms affect our traffic. And sometimes it feels like we're having to dance around trying to make algorithms work, and you can get lost in the noise of, "Oh, I'm trying to just drive traffic to my website, so I'm doing all these random things." And in and amongst the way of learning, dealing, surfing with all the algorithms and other things, you started noticing something about your sales and your product mix. I want you to talk a little bit more about this because I actually think this is really interesting and it's going to get to the heart of the questions we're going to pose to the audience.
Well, I noticed that I was making, especially for social media, very kind of colorful, intricate soaps. And I would get, of course, traction as far as people liking it and the views and just everything. But as far as sales go, they never sewed. like not a one. And I was just like, "What? They're beautiful. Like nobody wants to." And even when I would go to the markets and to the outdoor events, and nobody would buy them. And they were like, "Oh, they're beautiful." And then the answers that sometimes I would get from them is like, "Oh, it's too pretty to use."
It's too pretty to use.
And they were
Yeah.
like, "We could just leave it in our." And I was like, "Just leave it in the bathroom." They were like, "Yeah, just sit it on like the counter for people to see it, but not use it." And I'm like, "What do you? No, it's so. But you gotta use. You gotta use it." They're like, "No, it's too pretty. We're just gonna leave it sitting." But the ones that sold were either the all natural or if they were colorful, it was just like one color and they had like herbs and flowers on it, and those were my best sellers. So it was just a very interesting to see, like, yeah, it got views, but no sales whatsoever.
hmm
So
It's so interesting seeing the difference between what people sort of say they like and view, and then what they actually buy,
by yeah,
and the purchasing decisions and where they show up. And I think for a lot of business too, you can think if you're chasing algorithms, make more colorful soap because more people will see it, but make more colorful soap that nobody will buy because it's too pretty to use.
yeah,
It's such an interesting dilemma. And so then you kind of face this, well, how do I get people's attention with this simpler, beautiful product? And how do I start that kind of recalibrating process, right? Because now you're saying, hey, I think I've figured out that the pretty soap isn't what they want. It's not that they don't want pretty soap, but that all that extra work you were doing wasn't necessarily leading to those sales. So, how much extra work is it to make the pretty soap? How much extra time was that?
so much extra time because I mean, making soap anyway is a long process to just set everything up, melt it, let it cool. Because I soap at room temperature, so of course it's a long process. But then to get into smelling the fragrance and then coming up with the design and what colors and I would spend on one batch anywhere from 2 or 3 hours, especially if I'm doing layers or trying to throw extra little circles in there, little different figurine. It was a lot. It was a whole lot. And then by the end, I'm exhausted just from making one batch. And no, they like I said, I would get so many views and that's so beautiful and likes galore. So many likes. And I'm excited because I'm like, they're gonna love this. Look at this. They have all these likes and it's gonna sell out. And then it was crickets. It was complete crickets. And
Is
everybody's
my
like,
website up?
I
What's going
know.
on
I would
here?
check and I'd be like, refresh, like it's okay. I'm on it, and it was nobody else on it. What is going on? They didn't. They were like, yeah, we tricked you. We think it's pretty, but we're not buying that. We don't want that.
We don't really want that. We said we
Yeah,
did, but we don't. And you're like,
yeah. We're no, we don't want that at all. We were just pretending, you know. So what do? You're just kind of like, okay, you spend all these hours on it, and it's something that I love. So I was into it, but then I got to a place where I'm making pretty soap for views because it's not
right.
they're not resonating, they're not selling, and that's it. And they're just sitting. So then I have all this beautiful soap, so what do I do with the beautiful soap? So I ended up starting to just donate the beautiful soap to homeless shelters
Sure.
because they somebody's going to use the beautiful soap,
Somebody's going to use it.
you know. So might as well give it since nobody wanted to buy it. And I was like, I'll donate it, and it's being used, so I'm happy with that. But it's just very interesting to watch. Like you said, they like to watch it, but they don't want to use it.
But they don't want to
So
use it. Exactly. So now it's this process of saying, okay, well, I'm going to sort of peel it back and I'm going to look at the things that are selling, which in some ways is beautiful because it'll simplify your production process, right?
yeah,
So it's not going to take you as long and so it won't be as draining to make the soap. Now, the big question is now as you start to engage the audience and figure out what your strategies should be, knowing that they want a simpler product. And so this is kind of a question for our audience about if you were in Sonia's shoes, what could you do to start that kind of that rebuilding process, knowing that she's not going to craft fairs. So she needs to do this through some other mechanisms. And so what options, like what would you do in her shoes? And how would you think about building up that audience so that she can own her audience as well? Everybody knows that watches my stuff. I'm a big fan of own your audience. Get the emails, get the signups, because we all get hit by algorithms, myself included. When they make changes, I get hit too, just like everybody else does. So have people give some suggestions on what could you do there. And so we'll talk a little bit about, I had an idea for Sonia, and I
Yeah.
think would be glorious because I have seen how bubbly she is, and I'm like, ah, you're perfect for video. You're perfect for video. And so I brought up live shopping platforms as one possibility. And so Soon is one of them. They're in beta and they'll be coming out of beta soon. Whatnot is another one, and there's a few different ones that are out there in terms of some of these either live shopping or video shopping type platforms, where Soon is a video shopping, so your personality gets to shine, which is a beautiful part of it, right? And is a way to build up audiences. But in terms of that, driving them to the website and that, how do you rebuild community once you've refocused? I think that's kind
Yeah.
of how do you thoughtfully kind of build out that community? And so that would be our question for the audience to say, okay, she's gotten a lot more focused now because now she has more information. So what do you do? So if anybody wants to comment on that about how would you approach it if you're in her shoes, what could you do? We would love to see your comments on YouTube, and I will moderate them, so don't bother posting if you're a troll. Only be nice. I love my artisans, and I won't let anybody be mean to them. But if you have ideas for her, we would absolutely welcome those ideas. So now, also tell our audience, hey, if they want to actually go check out some of your socials, your site, if they do a little research and come up with ideas for you, how would they find you?
I am on Instagram. I am on Facebook. I am on TikTok under Geneva Pro Soapery. And of course, there is the website as well, Geneva Pro Soapery. And I would love just comments, feedback of just what do you think of the website? What would you, was it easy to navigate, or would you, think this might be able to be changed or whatnot? So,
Mm-hmm.
Geneva Pro, come by.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and we welcome your feedback. And that wraps up this episode of Why Is It So Messy in the Middle and how you can help. And we'll catch you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.